Hey everyone, and thanks for jumping back into the Cryptoverse. Today, we're going to talk about Bitcoin, and we're going to be discussing the social risk metric and just talking about whether retail has arrived or not. If you guys like the content, make sure you subscribe to the channel, give the video a thumbs up, and also check out the sale on Into the Cryptoverse Premium at intothecryptoverse.com. Now, for a lot of this cycle, my general stance has just been stick with Bitcoin, right? Bitcoin heavy, because Bitcoin leads the bull market. And obviously, when Ethereum went home back in April, I softened up my stance and I said, all right, well, maybe now Bitcoin and a little bit of ETH makes sense, because with Ethereum going home, it's likely that the ETH valuation against Bitcoin has bottomed for this cycle. And so the question is with that move by Ethereum, has it actually led to any more retail interest in the space? And it's always easy anytime there's a big rally to then like think that, all right, this is like 2021 or this is like 2017. But then I go back to these metrics here, and it just tells a completely different story. Okay. This has mostly been sort of an ETF flow, institutional driven cycle. We haven't really seen a lot of retail investors come back in the same way they were here in 2021. And you can see that because if you look at the social risk, which goes between 0 and 1, so when it's near 0, it's really quiet in the markets. There's not a lot of people here. When it's near 1 or, above zero point 0.8 risk, there's a lot of euphoria going on, right? And so it's still relatively low. And so right now, it's at 0.103. So this has been a really interesting metric for this cycle, right? Because there's always this kind of promise by this sort of is in a lot of people's minds, and I don't know if it's true or not, right? But this idea is that, well, retail will eventually return, and there's still a good chance that they will, but the reality is that they actually haven't really returned yet. And if you look at the social risk, I mean, you could argue that maybe it's going to go higher, maybe it's lagging a little bit, but really it's been going sideways at around 0.1 risk or so for the last week. And I mean, it makes sense that it's done that because the price of Bitcoin has been going sideways for about the last week. So if you're ever wondering, right, like, is this like 2017? Is this like 2021? And you're like, why does it feel so different than those years if you were in crypto for those years? It's because retail interest isn't the same as those years, right? I mean, you can see just how different it is. And so when you have a cycle like this, where the social risk, the social interest is so low, you basically just have a cycle where Bitcoin keeps sort of dominating the gains, and the altcoins end up lagging. And again, we're checking in with it now because we know that Ethereum went to the lower logarithmic regression trend line a few months ago. We've seen ETH Bitcoin go up a lot. Has it been enough to bring back retail? The answer, according to this stuff, these charts, is no. Now, there are some charts, if you look like Google Trends, there's a few things that look like they're starting to get a bit more elevated. But when you track like YouTube subscribers, views to crypto YouTube channels, and followers to various analysts on Twitter or X, and exchanges and layer ones on X, you can see, and if we look at all of them, you can see that they're all kind of low, right? Like none of them are screaming that it's really that different than what we've seen. And if you look at YouTube views to the top, to these YouTube channels, we're currently at a 7-day moving average. We're currently at around 1.2 million. This is not even as high, at least not yet, as what we got back in the last couple of tops, March 2024, and then December 2024, and even that spike we got in March when things were collapsing, because people also tune in for train wrecks, kind of like what we saw with the FTX collapse. But what's really interesting is that there haven't been any durable moves above 2,000 views collectively across these channels really since 2021, 2020, early 2022, right? That was the last time that you saw them stay above 2 million for any period of time other than just like a few days, because all we've really gotten this cycle is anytime we get a spike above 2 million views a day, that's when the market then really starts to cool off. And occasionally it spikes, but when it's going down, that almost is sort of a reverse indicator. Like when you see it spike on the way down, it is usually a sign of a local bottom, because retail ends up coming back and capitulating, and then you start to see it go back up again. But and even if you zoom in here, right? If you zoom in, you can see that 7-day moving average is starting to roll over a little bit. So, I mean, it's really going to be dependent on what Bitcoin does here. There is an argument to be made that that social risk going higher obviously doesn't bring, it doesn't make altcoins go up, doesn't make Ethereum go up, or doesn't make Bitcoin go up. You could argue that the act of those coins going up is what brings retail in. So maybe this is almost better with hindsight bias, but we've been looking at this chart for a long time and, kind of saying, look, if retail's not here, it makes more sense to stick with Bitcoin. I changed that narrative back in about April when Ethereum went home. Now I think Bitcoin and ETH makes sense. But I think that's sort of the justification, is that when you don't have a lot of retail participants, only a few coins are really going to do well, right? Only a few. And so that's been the story of the entire cycle. Every year, it's kind of been a different coin, a different altcoin that's doing well, right? Bitcoin has done well every year, 2023, 2024, and 2025, but not all altcoins have done well every year. Some of the altcoins that did well in, say, 2022 didn't do well in 2023, or the ones that did well in 2024 maybe didn't do well in 2023 or 2025. So it's really kind of like this rotation from one sector of the asset class to the other, but then you have a few coins that are outperforming and causing total market cap to go up. And one way to visualize this even better, and we've talked about this chart a lot before, is to look at the advanced decline index of the top 100 cryptocurrencies. And what it'll show you whenever it loads, right? But what it'll show you is that it's really been going down for the entire cycle. And what that means is that more assets in the top 100 have actually been declining on average than going up. So how can that be? Well, the reason that's possible is because the ones that are in the top 100, they keep kind of rotating in and out. But then the asset class goes higher as a whole because the larger caps are doing well, like Bitcoin's doing really, really well, and Ethereum is doing really, really well, especially now. But you can see this lower high structure on the advanced decline index has been going on for, a long time, right? A really long time. And it looks more like the 2016, 2017 cycle in that case, where it was just going lower, because you can see that in 2020, 2021, that's when it actually was going up for a more durable period of time. That was also when the Fed printed $6 trillion. So that might have had an effect on it. But the point is that, to sort of answer the question, has retail arrived? The answer is no, right? That doesn't mean they're going to arrive, but it just simply means that they haven't arrived yet. And if this cycle feels different to you than the last couple of cycles, it's because retail interest is a lot different this cycle, at least so far. Retail interest in 2021 was incredible. Retail interest in 2017 was incredible. And that was a crazy year. And you can see back then the social interest was just kind of going up all year, right? It went up in January, and then it put in a low, and then it went up again in June, and then another low, then up in August, and then another higher low, and then all the way up into January, and then it collapsed. Every time this goes up, it just keeps on stalling out. So what I want to do is, we see the social risk right now, it's 0.103. So we'll probably do an update in a month or two and just see, like, is it putting in higher lows? Are you seeing people come back? Or is it just starting to bleed back down? If it starts to bleed back down, that might be a sign that Bitcoin dominance is going to go back up. If it starts to really put in higher lows, then that might be the sign that people have been waiting for the last 4 years. So I think the social risk is an interesting metric to follow. Is this the same as the last few times that we've seen the social risk go up? Or will it start to be a bit more of a durable rally? With Ethereum moving, it seems like that's at least something on the right side of getting retail potentially interested. So that's why I wanted to talk about this, just to keep an eye on it and say, look, social risk is starting to go up. If this continues, then it could lead to a change in market dynamics. But note that the last couple of times that social risk went to 0.4, it then just faded and went back down. So that's kind of where I am right now. I still feel like this cycle is more so driven by institutions than retail, and that's pretty obvious by this chart. Whether retail arrives or not will probably be a question that will remain a question until, sometime over the next 6 months. I could see it, we're not going to fully know probably until the end of this year. But yeah, these are my thoughts about the social interest. You can clearly see, according to this chart, retail has not arrived. If you look at Google Trends, it might tell a slightly different story. But even then, sometimes you'll see it spike for like a month and then come right back down. So let's see what happens. And if you guys like the content, make sure you subscribe to the channel, give the video a thumbs up. And again, check out the sale on Into the Cryptoverse Premium at intothecryptoverse.com. I'll see you guys next time. Bye.